Hi, I'm Jack Berry. I'm here at the Otsego Club up in beautiful Gaylord, Michigan, and talking to Keith Gornick, who has a lot of history here in Gaylord, wonderful history going way, way, way back. And we're going to get Keith to talk about the Otsego Club, about how it started as a ski area, and then he became real interested in golf, and it wound up being the Gaylord Golf Mecca. And we're going to start way back. Keith?
That we are. Welcome, Jack. It's great to have you here in Gaylord. And how apropos that we're here at the Otsego Club on an absolutely white-out, snowy day in early March. And it does happen. So lake effect, and who comes in early for a little golf?
It's pure Michigan is what they call this.
It's pure Michigan. How true. Well, why don't we just start at the beginning briefly, so the viewers have an idea of how everything got here.
Right.
It really begins with an organization that was founded by the late Don McLough of McLough Steel Corporation and a few of his friends back in 1938-39. These guys really enjoyed skiing, and those were the days of the big hickory board skis with the bear trap bindings. They had done this in Europe and participated in the sport in Vermont and so on, and wanted to have an escape from Detroit. So up to northern Michigan and Vanderbilt in particular. It was a rented hill.
What kind of a lift did they have? No four seat.
No, at the time it was a very simple rope tow that was made up of a small little Dodge four-cylinder engine at the bottom, and some old wheels that were taken off the Ford or Chrysler assembly line and so on, and then rope wrapped around it, and that was the beginning of the program. It was a small group of about 50, 60 families, mostly guys at that time, and they had a lot of fun. When World War II broke out, of course, operations closed down, and the warming hut was locked or whatever and turned into a chicken coop. And during the time of World War II, a number of the city fathers and Chamber of Commerce types here in Gaylord sort of noticed that there had been these industrialists and so on pursuing this crazy sport just north of them. And frankly, Gaylord had a better hill just east of town. And that would be in an area generically known as Hidden Valley. And as you can see looking out, when the snow breaks a little bit, as you can see looking out the windows here, it truly is a hidden valley.
Right.
And had the desirable north and eastern exposure for the slopes, so they wouldn't solar poach, if you will, and melt the snow. Vanderbilt had that. Gaylord did not, and a natural bowl so that the snow could drop in. Well, therein began the second edition of the club, if you will, and to sort of take care of everyone in the county rather than name it Vanderbilt 2 or Gaylord Ski Club and so on. It was the Otsego Ski Club at Hidden Valley. It was a winter-only operation and proceeded from 1946 here at the Gaylord site until Don McLough's death in 1954. That was quite a tragedy. Very sudden and unexpected. And one of the members at the time happened to be my father, the late Alan Gornick, who at that time was tax and general counsel of Ford Motor Company and tax advisor to the Ford family, and was one of the many automotive-related people who were members of this club. And at that time, the club had maybe about 150 or more, just slightly more family members. Membership was by annual re-invitation to join. So if somebody didn't pay their bills, they didn't get an invitation, and they could explain to their wives and kids why they weren't going to be up there for Christmas, New Year's week and enjoying the thing. So it ensured that the bills were paid at least by the 1st of December. One of the first things that my father saw when he bought the property from the McLough estate was that it was a winter-only operation, and really it needed to be to expand and to maintain a base for the employees and the community. It really needed to be turned into a 4-season or at least a 2-season operation. And with that, my dad commissioned the late William Diddle, who was a renowned golf course architect of the time.
Indiana, done 100 courses or more.
Absolutely. To come up here and design what became our first golf course, and that's named the Classic. And so that was commissioned in 1955 and completed in 1957 and became really the basis for the summer operations here at Otsego, Hidden Valley.
But was there any other golf course in Gaylord at the time?
Well, there was the Gaylord Country Club, which was then located down
Kmart parking lot.
Yeah, the Kmart parking lot, and their clubhouse is now the local Elks Club. So they're still serving drinks and pretty good dinners and that sort of thing. But the Gaylord Country Club, and that was about it. And this was the only resort course up here at the time, so connected with the rooms and so on. Well, with all of that came the expansion, not only the golf course, but taking the property from just a shade under 500 acres to ultimately about 4,000 acres of land.
And then tell me the little story about when a reporter came to interview you and asked you how much you owned here.
Well, that's a good question, and that was on a Sunday morning after some heavy exercise, shall we say, the night before, and we were all standing in the lobby right over here next to the big picture windows, and it was a spectacular clear day, and even more difficult for the hangover and so on. And I think while we were waiting for Bloody Marys or screwdrivers and so on, a reporter asked, and he said, "Well, now, Keith, really, just how much acreage do you have here?" and so on, and is it this trees and so on, and trying to be modest and so on, said, "Well, yeah, it's out there and it's a little bit more than that," and so on. Well, this sort of persisted. Well, does it go to that chairlift? Well, yes. Does it go to this tree line? Yes. And after a while, it just came to the point. I laughed and I said, basically, it's everything but the blue. So, and with that, we all laughed, and the drinks arrived at that time, and so on. But I never really viewed this property as something that I owned, nor did my dad, but really viewed it more as being stewards of the land and the enterprise. This is such a magnificent piece of property, one of many in northern Michigan that are really, these are gifts of God that we all get to enjoy. And I really think that one can't own these things, one stewards them and you shepherd them, if you will.
And then, Keith, there are 2 golf courses in town then. Were there going to be any more? What was the feeling in the town about golf and about promoting it?
Well, certainly by the time that the Classic was built, shortly thereafter, George Wellington Smith built Wilderness Valley, that course, and I believe that was in 60 or 61. But basically, those were the 3 core courses. Not too much time after that, very early 70s, late 60s, early 70s, Mishaway constructed their courses, and of course that was part of a land development, a very nice one. So rolling forward to 1980, 81, 82, there were really four courses, and that would be Wilderness Valley, Gaylord Country Club, Mishaway, and our golf course, the Classic at what's now Otsego Club. One of the things that I found after I'd moved up here in 1976, post-graduation from the University of Michigan, and for what was to be six months or so before going on to law school or business school, was to help my father sell the property. It was a labor of love for him. He enjoyed it. He had recently remarried and was spending more time in Florida and Europe and so on, and had a lot of fun with this place. So he said, listen, while you're taking your 6 months or so on, if you'd like to, why don't you move up north and sort of clean things up a little bit and tidy it up and sell it. Well, long story short, after those 6 months, I worked out a deal with him, and I ended up helping him sell it, but I ended up buying it. I ended up buying it. So it's been a long 6 months, we should say. But I'm so glad that I did. What a great opportunity to come to Northern Michigan. Well, one of the things that I had noticed from the moment I came up here was that many of the merchants in town were not cooperating with one another. Clothing merchants weren't referring them to other stores, and so on and so forth. There was this little bitterness, and that spilled over into the golf courses as well, and the employees at our various courses. And it was my belief that the guests and our tourists who were coming to visit and patronize our various places were picking up on that. And mind you, that was also the time that Paul Nine and his group were building the Grand Traverse Resort in Traverse City. The Boynes were certainly expanding their golf operations. There were a number of other choices besides these four properties in Gaylord, Michigan. So I thought, before we all just destroy this very nice environment, why don't we try to get together and have an agreement? And so usually using some of the old techniques, namely an open bar and a culinary team on full alert, I invited representatives of the various properties.
No, I think you said that you were going to have a guard outside the door and keep them in there, and they could eat and drink whatever they wanted. but they had to agree, or you wouldn't open the door again.
Absolutely, how true. And you have a great memory, Jack. And we did. We had a guard from Pinkerton's company with a big metal flashlight and so on. Looked very intimidating. And I said, guys, at 12 o'clock, we'll meet in what's now the duck blind, and we'll have some refreshments. Then we're moving into the Pontresina, or what was then just the round dining room, later named Pontresina. And you can drink whatever you want. The wine list is here, the menu, you want rack of lamb, you want lobsters, whatever. But we're all going into this room. And other than bathroom breaks, we're going to stay in there until we either have total war or an agreement in place to get along and market ourselves. So with that, everybody sort of, well, all right, now, well, at least it's free drinks and food, so we'll show up. And it was a day very much like this. It was in January of 1982, windy, cold, white out. Last thing it looked like was golf. But we all got together, and it was a fun group. From Mishaway, we had Don Werner, their then general manager Jim LeDuc, and Bob Jenkins. From Wilderness Valley, we had Reggie McDonald and another member of his team. From the Gaylord Country Club, we had Fred Otto and another member of his team, and whose name escapes me at the moment. And here we had myself and our then director of sports, Pat Duffy. So we had a pretty good group and a fun group. Well, we all got about half Schnockerino and had some great rack of lamb and everything else. And really just put it all on the table and started telling stories of, what the employees had done. And, well, no, you don't want to go to the Gaylord Country Club, or you don't want to go to Otsego Hidden Valley. You don't want to do this, blah, blah, blah. Well, after a little bit of sort of shouting and yelling and this and that, and not too much of it, we all just decided, let's just settle down and let's get along and start referring business to one another. Let's keep them in Gaylord and Otsego County. And with that, we formed a group called the Gaylord Golf Council. And that was the genesis of what later became the Golf Mecca. Gaylord Golf Council moved forward until 1984, when I was beginning a startup oil and gas exploration company known as Ward Lake Drilling, and my time was really being devoted to that. So I really didn't have time to run this on a day-to-day basis and essentially be general manager of this and set up that company. So with that, I looked for extensively, and for a period of about a year and a half, for a very good general manager. And after interviewing so many people sent by the top headhunters, I finally realized I was mostly interviewing people with a palm tree mentality. And by that I mean they'd come up here and say, "Oh gosh, this lodge is gorgeous, and what a beautiful town, and winters are really long, but I can't wait to be here." And I'd say, "Well, I'll tell you what. What's your ultimate goal after you move through various properties, and as is generally accepted in hospitality, where would you really like to end up?" "Oh, Arizona. Oh, Florida, Mexico, or something." They were all palm tree people. So I finally just said, this isn't it. And I called up a couple of the headhunters and I said, "Stop sending me palm tree people. I want pine tree people." And they'd never heard the term before. And I said, "Send me somebody from a Swiss hotel school. Send me somebody from Northern Europe. Send me a Canadian. Send me whatever." Well, sure enough, we started seeing pine tree people. And one fellow in particular was just a great find. And we hit it off very well personally and professionally. And his name was Dick Weber. And Dick was a graduate of Cornell's Hotel School, where he had gone on a hockey scholarship with his twin brother, and a very bright guy, very marketing oriented, as personable as can be, and only one hitch: he was a Canadian citizen and couldn't work here in the United States. So I said, "Well, there are a lot of hurdles in business, and if that's the case, we'll take care of it. I want you here, and I'll give you a consulting contract right now." So Dick and I agreed to that, and we were able to get him his green card so he could move his family here, and became general manager of the club in the resort in 1984. Well, one of the first points that I made, I said, "Listen, in any hospitality property of this size, it takes at least a full 12-month cycle to really get to know it and get the feel for it. But in that time, there's a great deal of opportunity to become involved in the community and so on that we Gornicks have always been, and this club has always been, this resort has always been. And one of the things that I'd really like you to take a look at, Dick, is this Gaylord Golf Council. We have people cooperating, we're really getting along, we're having some fun meetings, and people are sticking around and floating around our golf courses. And take a good look at that. You have a great marketing background, you're sharp as a tack, and go after that if you think it's worth it. So he said, "Great, I'll do that." And, well, as we say, the rest is history, isn't it? What a great guy.
Yeah, right.
just a great guy. And Dick really went after it. His forte of really outstanding talent of many talents was in marketing, in my opinion, and consensus building and bridge building and so on. And with that was just a fish to water, truly so. And of course there were more courses coming online at that time. Harry Melling had recently purchased the old Sylvan Knob ski area and was transforming that into what's become a tremendous ski resort of national and international renown, now known as Treetops. Other courses were being built at Wilderness Valley. Of course, David Smith commissioned Tom Doak to build Black Forest, and so on and so forth. The Otto family of Garland came into the Mecca and brought their great resort. So we really went from a small luncheon party with an open bar and a let's get along to where the Gulf Mecca is today. And so much of that, I think, is really rests on Dick Weber and his ability to really move that council to absolutely the next level. You know, I think one thing that really needs to be said about the Gulf Mecca and how it exists today on its 25th anniversary is how well this organization is working, how that spirit of cooperation that began at that lunch in 1982 still works, and particularly in some of the most harsh economic times this country has seen since the Great Depression, certainly through changes in ownership of the various golf courses, through death, retirement, or what have you. And it's amazing how well this group has stuck together, and in fact, I think is becoming stronger. I really think as one looks around northern Michigan, and there's so many great resort areas and opportunities to enjoy oneself, but I really don't think that there's any place that offers as much as Otsego County and Gaylord. And in the summertime, the Gaylord Golf Mecca, if you like picking up the sticks and swatting at a ball, this is heaven.
Now what about the Alpine Village? How did that come about? What was your lodges here? How many were there when you took over from your dad?
Well, at the time, really when this entire resort was started in 1946 after World War II, there wasn't anything here. And Don McLough and his wife, Marie McLough, really enjoyed the architecture of Western and Eastern Austria, the Tyrolean area, and parts of Switzerland and so on, and thought, why not? We're perched on top of this hill. We're in one of the highest elevations in the Middle West. Why don't we fashion it after sort of a Swiss or Austrian resort? And with that, they hired a noted architect of his time, Hugh Keyes, who was based in Bloomfield Hills. And I think many listeners will remember the old Kingsley Inn, right at the corner of Long Lake and Woodward Avenue. It was done in an English Tudor style. That was designed by Hugh Keyes. Also, the old Fox and Hounds with the round turret and so on. That was Hugh Keyes, and he did a number of houses and country clubs and all that. Well, he was an architect who very much enjoyed working with themes, not just his own ideas and impress upon the client how that should work, but pick up on various themes. So again, like a fish to water or something, he thought, great, I get to design all this alpine stuff, and how great. So the main lodge was built, this lodge that we're in today, and the Logmark Bar at the top of the hill. some small log cabins, little chalets that mimic some of the mountain huts in Switzerland and Austria. And then a couple of lodges, the Forest Lodge and the Tyrol Lodge, which are, the Tyrol is still there, and Forest had to come down. It was just quite aged.
Past its time.
Yeah, absolutely, well past its time. And that was added on to by my father. That room's inventory at that time was roughly, it had about 40 rooms. To the point where when I took it over, we had 125 hotel rooms. And the city of Gaylord picked up in the late 1960s, was really looking for some theme to tie together downtown. Yeah, and do all of that. And they thought, well, you know, we at one time we're a lumber town, we were this and that. But the real attraction now seems to be the skiers and that sort of thing. And why don't we just adopt the architecture that's already well established out at Hidden Valley, Otsego? Why don't we take that and redo our storefronts and remake ourselves as Michigan's Alpine Village? And so it was. And of course, one of the tag-ons to that is Alpenfest. You have to have a good festival, and modeled after Oktoberfest. And Alpenfest is still functioning to this day. The Alpine theme is having a revival as well, and has really worked very well. One of the interesting points also is that when Gaylord formed itself as the Alpine Village, they decided that in Switzerland should really have a sister city. And so just outside of St. Moritz, the very famous and very posh ski resort, is another smaller resort named Pontresina. And so when...
Here we are, right next to the Pontresina.
Next to the Pontresina room, absolutely. So in 1985-86, we were looking to really have an upscale dining room above and beyond what we already had. And I thought, you know, this is where Gaylord's Alpine theme began, right in this main lodge. And the community has never really honored, in too many ways, the sister city of Pontresina. So let's take the flagship of our culinary experience and abilities and name it the Pontresina. And that restaurant has been extremely well received. I'm very proud that during my ownership, our team was able to achieve multi-years in a row Wine Spectator magazine's Award of Culinary Excellence, along with many other great awards. Detroit News and Free Press Readers Poll, #1 golf resort in Michigan. Upon completion of the Tribute Golf Course, which I think we'll get to in a few minutes, Sports Illustrated magazine rating that as one of the top 10 best new golf courses in the world. But really, there's so much of Gaylord's history that's based right here at Otsego, and it's really been quite a fine journey.
Now, we had a lot of big names coming up to northern Michigan to do golf courses. Tom Fazio and Robert Trent Jones over at Treetops, and Tom Doak was down at the Black Forest, and just some of the best. And Jack Nicklaus over at Grand Traverse. And then you had an idea that maybe we needed another golf course. Is that correct? And
Jack, how true! And we truly did. We sat down with our team and did some forward projections, and just realized that we had to have at least 36 holes of golf connected with this property to really make it work for groups, for weddings, for conferences, and to really get the occupancy that we needed in the hotel rooms and so on. So with that, we started looking for golf course architects and land planners and so on who would be sensitive, and that's the key word, sensitive, to this exquisite piece of property. I mean, this is not a cornfield in Nebraska. It has many ups and downs. It's the headwaters of the Sturgeon River, some beautiful wetlands, some great highlands, and elevation changes and so on. So it's one that was really required the right person. And we interviewed so many really fine architects, and I won't name them because, you know, why not? All good people. And at a golf conference in Monterey, happened to meet Gary Koch and Rick Robbins. And we really hit it off. And I liked the way that they were discussing their various other projects that they had done here and abroad, and their belief in pretty much leave it alone as much as possible, and so on. So that sort of perked my ears up a little bit. So with that, I said, you know, I have some land up in northern Michigan, and why don't you come take a look? And one of the comments was, well, all right, Mr. Gornick, but you know, it probably takes about 180 to 200 acres to really make a nice golf course. And I said, yeah, all right. Well, I think we have that. And I said, well, you know, and if you have a little bit more than that, that would be nice. And I said, yeah, I think we could probably supply a little bit more. So, exactly. So with that, I said, actually, why don't you guys come up? And just for starters, I'll give you 1,000 acres to work with, but fly up, take a look at it. So they did. They looked at the topos. We walked the property, and they said, "You mean we have all of this to play with?" And I said, "Absolutely, guys, have at it." And that they did. And I said, "Here's some basic parameters. Number one, I want you to move as little earth as possible." And that's not an economic decision, but look at this beautiful, beautiful land. Why don't you find out? God created the land, if you will, and why don't you figure out where to place the tees and the greens and the fairways?
I think people love that part of it. I mean, you have so many elevated tees, the drop shots, which everybody, you know, it's the most fun shot in golf. And you've got more than one of them, and you just look out over this beautiful country up here, and then you get down to where the Sturgeon River kind of bubbles through down there. It's just beautiful property.
Truly a blessing. And again, that goes back to the concept of stewardship. I said, you know, really just work with what's here. And those two guys, words really cannot describe
Well, I think Gary Koch, you know, commentator on Golf Channel and NBC and so forth, does a terrific job. I think he's very sensible, and even though he comes from the flatland in Florida, why he appreciates what you've got here.
One of the things that was so much fun is to just see how people are really enjoying that magnificent golf course. And a number of people say, well, how did the name come about? And we were thinking of so many different things. But in 1998, I lost my father. My father passed away. And Gary's father passed away also. And we thought, you know, what a fitting thing. Let's name this the Tribute. A tribute to Alan Gornick, who built all this, arguably, and to Gary's father, and to two great fathers who gave us a love of golf and the land and that sort of thing. A tribute to the game of golf, a tribute to the property, right. And so there it is, the tribute. And as corny as it might sound, but every day is Father's Day on the Tribute.
That's I enjoy playing it, and to me it almost seemed like it's still kind of undiscovered, that as many wonderful courses that there are around, that it's a fun course to play.
Well, I'm glad you enjoy it, and you know, there are times, Jack, that people ask and so on, you know, what did you really enjoy when you owned the resort? And maybe what some of the viewers don't know is that in 2006, excuse me, after having been here for 30 years and operating this, my wife and I had a daughter, and I looked around and I said, you know, our family has helped raise literally thousands of families, help them raise their kids, both on the members' side and also the employees' side. But I want to take some time to raise ours and spend time as a family. So I made what was a tough and very personal decision to market the property and find some new stewards for it. And did so. It was, I'm very thankful to say, it was not one of these issues where there were banks with shotguns to the head or any of this sort of thing, and that's which has happened in our industry, and sadly so. It wasn't any of that, but purely the idea of I want to spend time with my family. And one doesn't always get to do that in hospitality. You spend time, the weekends and the holidays are all spent taking care of other people, sure. And in my bachelor days, that was a blast. I can't tell you how much fun. And in some cases, I probably can't remember how much fun. But it was great fun, and it's great fun now. But people say, you know, do you miss some of it? And I have to say, I do miss working with great people like my old friend Dick Weber, so many of the people who constitute the golf mecca, and certainly Paul Beechnaw and so on. And of course the team here, the culinary team, the golf team, the ski team, just a great group of people.